Hello everyone, welcome back to part 2 of us reacting to the Fnaf timeline by
I'm here.
MatPat. Yeah, you're still here.
Yeah.
You know, this side goes on the left, right?
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, let's start the video. You ready?
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, and officially page 7 of the Fnaf timeline script.
How long is this gonna take?
Rival restaurant, cartoon show, yeah, inevitably death. That inevitably death. This is a huge moment for us theorists. For the last decade, we've had this 4-player controller icon, and now we finally fill in the final missing piece. Get ready for the rollout of our newest theorist channel. Drumroll, please! Style might sound weird at first, but hear me out. And that is incredible. There needs to be given me the or how many you can find on this over there top fashion channel this timeline.
Do I look like I give up?
You promised you wouldn't cuss.
I didn't.
You know, they could. What is it? All they do? They do film,
game, food, game.
What, didn't you have a good idea? Book theories.
Book theory.
That's. But we all know MatPat can't read. I'm kidding. No,
I'm kidding. Read. Well, he can read the 7-page timeline script.
I guess that's true. They could have done a book theory, honestly. Book theorist, honestly.
Yeah. You probably needed to cover the FNAF books.
Ha. Well, they came out with Bendy books too, and Hello Neighbor. And
that game.
Okay, anyway.
Onward to part 2 franchise is running. Fredbear's Family Diner and the newly opened Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Together, William and Henry had been able to take the hybrid suit idea and make it into a reality. They called their new invention the Springlock suit, and fittingly enough, it was symbolic of the partnership between these two men. A human suit as designed by William that could be
Markiplier.
Is that Markiplier?
Is that Markiplier?
Yeah,
it's Markiplier!
It is Markiplier!
Hello everybody, my name is Markiplier, and today we're going to be killing a man.
What? What?
Hello everybody, my name is Markiplier. Today we're going to be committing first-degree murder.
Become a freestanding Henry-style robot. But because it was still new tech with kinks to work out, the rollout was limited, restricted only to the Fredbear's Family Diner location. All of this meant that William was busier than ever. He didn't have time to be a full-time parent, so he designed a nanny cam system where cameras and speakers were hidden throughout the neighborhood, as well as in his youngest son's favorite toy, Psychic Friend Fredbear. I mean, plushy Fredbear.
So I think it was MatPat that made this theory that Fredbear is actually a lonely Freddy. Do you know what a lonely Freddy is?
No.
It's basically it's this little Freddy that follows you around if you're lonely and have no friends. I think honestly that theory.
So the crying child is the one that gets no. I'm gonna carry this joke through the entire series.
Yeah. So honestly, that theory was pretty solid. For the most part, if he could stop telling his lame jokes, and that intro was kind of funny. So I do believe
he's there, he's everywhere.
He's like a friend, Fredbear.
Yeah. I swear to God, we share a single brain cell.
Man, I have one brain cell, and every time it bounces around my head, and every time it bounces perfectly in the corner, I experience a thought. So anyway, I do believe that Fredbear might be a lonely Freddy.
But since cameras just weren't enough to raise a kid, he also left childcare duties to his eldest son, Michael. There was just one problem with that. Michael was far from the best babysitter. He tormented his younger brother by jump scaring him with a foxy mask and constantly left him behind. William watched all of it from his cameras. Kids would be kids. Tomorrow was another day, after all. Except Michael's torment didn't stop. Bitter, angry thoughts would run through Michael's mind. Why did he have to be the one to take care of this whining crybaby all the time? It just wasn't fair. It was time that he got even with his brother by playing the ultimate prank. A prank that just so happened to be on this crying child's birthday. He and his friends would take his scared little brother and make him do the one thing that he was terrified of doing, getting close to the animatronics. That would be embarrassing for the kid that was such an embarrassment to him. His brother squirmed, screamed, kicked, and fought, but just as they were putting that small, squirming boy up to Fredbear's lips, the mouth snapped shut. The sensitive spring locks inside the body had been triggered by the boy's movements, and they'd immediately clamped.
Okay, so I do get why a lot of people say this is a spring lock, and I understand it. But here's another thought. A spring lock failure would imply that the suit was in its costume form.
Which it was not.
So
the spring locks were not wound. The spring lock failure could not occur.
So what I believe happened was the animatronic was dancing like it does, moving back and forth, and it opened its mouth like it does to do its thing, and then the mouth shut.
Like it was singing.
And
then it finished a verse, and then it
and it clamped down. That's what I always believed. Even before I got into the lore, I always believed that's what I always thought happened when I saw this. But I do understand why everyone says that this is a Springlock failure. However, they're wrong. They're stupid. I'm kidding, but not really.
No, not really. We don't kid about anything. Except murder. And even then.
Down. The wriggling stopped. The boy went limp, but it was just a prank. It was meant to be funny. The boy was taken to the hospital and was
Bro, he went to court and he claimed
Your Honor, my client pleads oopsie.
Immediately given an IV. Flowers and pills filled the nightstand next to his hospital bed, but the damage was too severe. He couldn't recover. As the younger brother's consciousness began to fade, he could hear Michael's last words, a small and flimsy apology. But his father, Williams, through the voice of the Fredbear plush, were a firm
Trident gum commercial.
Honestly, this music is bopping.
and committed promise to a dying son. You're broken. I will put you back together. This would not be.
We'll put you back together.
Yeah, that song's good.
We'll put you back together. Anyway, carry on.
The end. No matter what, William's son would live again. It would just take time. Time that, right now, he just didn't have. His young son's heart flatlined as the boy faded.
We gonna get to the part where Elizabeth becomes important?
No,
Maybe.
Never.
One day? Perhaps?
Into the inky unknown of the afterlife. In the aftermath of the tragedy, changes started happening around the restaurants. Kids were now required to wear security wristbands to prevent
It's Charlie!
It's Charlie!
She shaved her head!
She shaved her
anyone
head!
from getting outside without parental permission. Any kid who approached the exit without permission would have to answer to the security puppet, a marionette on strings that could fly around on rails across the restaurant to stop kids.
Bro, this is how you traumatize children.
Okay,
I'm surprised this even existed for a day.
Hold up. Just had a thought.
What's your thought?
What if the Sun and Moon animatronic is like an upgraded version of the security puppet?
That's what I always thought. I thought it was
like it was just like supposed to be like a variation of the security puppet.
I feel like that's been a theory that's been going around that the moon and sun were supposed to be a puppet.
Yeah, I think I'm not gonna put if I'm gonna make a big collage of all the puppets, I'm not gonna put Sun and Moon on there, but
they are kind of like puppets.
they do kind of remind me.
Would you consider Monty a Bonnie?
No.
Okay.
He's not even a rabbit. I would
you consider
maybe
Roxy? Okay.
Maybe Roxy.
Okay, we're getting off topic.
No,
bro,
I know.
Bro, we're getting off topic.
In their tracks. It was William's idea, inspired by Michael constantly leaving the restaurant without his brother. In the wake of Fredbear's Springlock failure, all the hybrid suits were getting retired, locked away at the nearby Freddy Fazbear location. It was yet another tough pill to swallow after all the hard work that he and Henry had put into them. William would eventually bury the boy's small body in a remote location out in the woods right alongside his drive into and out of work every day. The death of this little boy sent the family spiraling. His wife, crippled with grief, was so distraught that all she could do was sit and watch TV. But his son Michael was far.
What?
That's supposed to be William.
Bro?
What?
Honestly,
I always thought
honestly,
that was Michael.
So you can interpret Midnight Motorist any way you want, depending on
Midnight Motorist. I think
we're just not gonna touch it. We're
okay,
not gonna
here's the
touch
thing
it.
about Midnight Motorist. I think that the lore would probably be a lot less complicated if Midnight Motorist did not exist. Like
Sometimes I like to pretend Security Breach doesn't exist, so let's just do that here.
Okay. Wait, why?
Because it's Security Breach.
As a game or as far as the game goes, or as far as the story goes?
The story.
Ah.
Need I say more?
Or worse. Complaining of seeing hallucinations of a golden bear standing outside of his window. The boy was so racked with guilt that he was convinced that he was being haunted by the ghost of his brother stuck inside the suit that took his life. The suit's three-toed feet digging into the wet earth. The words, "It's me," ringing through Michael's ears. Some nights, Michael would even go so far as to break out of his room to check the gravesite and ensure that his brother was still there. As for William himself, he disappeared into his work and his drinks. Junior's, the local bar, wasn't far from his son's gravesite. He found himself going there more and more frequently, spending longer and longer amounts of time there. The bar gave him a place to think, to remember, to reflect and stew on how Henry had stolen his idea for an animal-themed restaurant, how they'd cut his character out of the cartoon when everyone else was there, how Henry had humiliated him by buying him out of bankruptcy, and now there was his son. Henry had taken his son from him. The robotic part was the part that failed after all. William ordered one more drink, but it was one too many. The bar turned him out and told him to go home. But William didn't go home. Drunk and angry, William raced back to the
He ran off the road because he was so drunk and he died.
All right, that's the end of the timeline. We'll see you later.
Thank you. Roll the credits. Oh, no, wait.
Restaurant to give Henry a piece of his mind, only to find someone else waiting. Henry's daughter, Charlie, locked outside of the building. Bullies laugh.
She is bald. I knew it. Look at that. Look at him.
We are going to just come, Michael. We're going to commit murder.
Laughing at her through the window. Fine, some other problem to fix. But then Afton got an idea. A beautifully awful idea.
Bro,
He is not the Grinch.
Bro, when he said, then he got an idea, I was like, oh my god, the Grinch. And then he said that, and I was like, no, not the Grinch.
So William Afton is canonically the Grinch now.
It all makes sense.
Except he's not gonna steal Christmas, he's gonna steal your life.
Alarm, the Lord!
The Lord! The Lord!
The Lord! The Lord! The Lord! The Lord!
This was his chance to get back at the man that had humiliated him all. Fine, some other
I'm
all
sorry.
those years ago. Henry had killed his business,
What the
and now
hell does
Henry's
that
robotic suit had killed his son. It was time for William to do some killing of his own. Let Henry feel what it's like to have something you love get ripped away. While parties continued inside the walls of the pizzeria, William attacked Charlie in the back alley. It felt good. He felt free. The years of resentment and bitterness trapped in his heart finally released in a moment of pure unapologetic evil. He would make Henry hurt like he hurts. And in that moment, William became
Nice
a killer,
laugh track, dude.
dropped Charlie's lifeless body, and drove home, forced to confront his family problems later that night, appalled, but also a little excited by what he had just done. Charlie's death would remain on the books as a random act of violence, and though Henry had suspicions about William, there was no physical evidence, nothing that could link him back to the crime. In the weeks that followed, Fredbear's Family Diner would close for good. 2 high-profile deaths around the restaurant with 2 grieving owners in such a short period of time was just too much bad press to handle. Besides, Freddy Fazbear's was still open, and it was the newer restaurant anyway. All the equipment from the diner, including the old yellow suits and security puppet, would get retired to that location, and there they would sit for 2 uneventful years. The rest of 1983 and 1984 were spent quietly grieving.
Are we gonna get to the circus baby here soon?
Hopefully.
I'm hoping.
Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and the new
I think it's gonna be 1985.
cast of characters were a hit. Tragic memories of their yellow predecessors quickly faded. Afton kept a low profile and buried himself in work and research, quickly reaching Henry's level of
That's how you
engineering and even surpassing him. And while Henry slowed down to grieve, Afton kept going, even starting his own company, Afton Robotics, for all those pet
Finally.
projects that were a
There
little
we
bit too
go.
experimental for the regular operations of the pizzeria. The first of these experimental projects was a secret workshop under his house, a veritable bunker, which allowed him to work while still monitoring his kids via hidden security cameras. 1983. A passcode that served as a constant reminder of why the cameras were so important, why he was down there in the first place. This was all to fulfill the promise that he had made to his son, right? I will put you back together. This was for him, all for him, right? But cameras weren't enough.
That picture of the crying child makes him look like a girl.
That's true.
I'm not gonna say
He
anything
needed
else.
to solve the runaway Michael problem. He had to keep him in the house. He couldn't have.
Cause you gotta run
Run
away,
away,
baby,
before
before I put my spell on you. Cause you gotta get away, baby, cause everything you know is true. Cause baby, I'm a rolling stone.
I'm
Cause
gonna
you gotta run away, baby.
Anyway.
Have another one of his kids wind up dead inside of an animatronic suit. So why not run a little experiment on Michael? You see, all this work with Henry had gotten Afton to start.
Yes, this seems right. Honestly, you go, William Afton.
Okay, so the dream theory worked until it didn't.
Honestly, I didn't mind the dream theory. Like,
It was good until Sister Location came out and then there in the breaker room
Honestly-
map there was the FNAF 4 house.
honestly, I wouldn't have mind if the dream theory was canon and then you built on what went on with William. I wouldn't mind if those first 4 games were just a dream.
Except for FNAF 3. I want FNAF 3 to be canon because that one is my favorite.
Learning more about life, robots, the human mind, and what a fallible machine we as humans were. Our reality is so easy to manipulate with a few sensory deceptions.
Ah!
What is that apple?
What the?
That's like annoying orange from Creepypasta's
That is
Backrooms.
an annoying orange creepy pasta.
What in the name of Little Nightmares
And now I'm going
Asylum
to
is
shoot
that?
myself.
What kind of William Afton built Little Nightmares Arkham Asylum escapee shit is that?
Yes.
Anyway.
Exceptions like sound. With just a few sounds, he had discovered that he could alter a person's vision. He could transform blank, smooth plastic robots into lumbering, twisted nightmares. Nightmares far scarier than he could create with actual materials. They would appear organic, rotting, putrid, terrifying. These would be his means of keeping his son Michael in the house where he belonged. Was it extreme? Maybe. But then again, this was the boy who had killed his son. He would make him sorry. And so Michael would grow up not only dealing with the memories of his own guilt, the hospital room, the pills, the flowers, the death of his brother, but also facing literal nightmares, illusions created by sound. Michael would never forget these either. Years later, as a security guard, he would still draw pictures of them inside of his logbook. But all of these extra projects meant that his home life suffered even more. He was an absent father and a non-existent husband, leaving his wife cold and alone.
I think his wife is dead and bald now, so I think it's okay, man.
Why do you hide inside your...
Oh my God, no. Honestly, I don't mind this. I just wish there was more evidence, and personally, I don't feel like there's enough evidence to conclude that Ballora is Mrs. Afton.
It's a nice theory, but I
wouldn't mind if it was canon.
But there's not enough evidence.
In our
now.
opinion.
Right now, we don't have enough evidence.
I don't think they'll ever go back. You know, if they do, they'll do a prequel. And it's like, it was actually the mimic the whole time.
Ballora is the mimic confirmed.
walls.
Like, we were wrong.
When there is music in my halls, all I see is an empty room. No more joy, an empty tomb.
And despite her repeated demands that he leave his office and engage with the family, he refused time and time again, leaving her no choice but to leave.
You burned down my house?
You call that a house? It was like a morgue in there. You need to see your son.
The baby isn't mine.
Well, how's this? I'm keeping the diamond ring.
And through it all, there was one lingering feeling. William wasn't done. He had gotten a taste of what it felt like to be unleashed, what it felt like to be free. Charlie's murder had unlocked something in him, and
he wanted an Oreo.
Never forget your first
He
Oreo
really
cookie.
wanted that Oreo.
A gluten-free Oreo.
he wanted more.
He wanted more gluten-free Oreos because
And so he committed countless acts of first-degree murder. Died, came back as Springtrap, and then founded went to Oreo and piloted the gluten-free Oreo. The end.
Cool.
June 26th, 1985. Putting on the golden Bonnie suit, he lured children one by one.
Are we ever gonna get to Elizabeth and why we should care? Oh, you know what they're gonna do? She grew up and she became Vanessa. You know, that's what they're gonna do.
Because according to MatPat, who at this point I'm convinced is colorblind, is convinced that Elizabeth either Elizabeth has blonde hair or Vanessa has red hair.
So,
or both.
So apparently, Vanessa is technically a strawberry blonde, according to Google.
But that's not red.
And supposedly,
people
with red hair, sometimes their hair color will fade, but I'm not sure. I don't know much about red hair, seeing as I don't have it.
Every single red-haired person I met has been evil.
Bro, that's kind of racist.
I know.
Anyway.
I said we could make it racist if we wanted to in the last part.
But apparently people with red hair, their color can fade. But, you know, I bet it's going to be Elizabeth is actually Vanessa, and she actually survived.
And Circus Baby is the mimic.
And the Circus Baby is the mimic, and she lived inside of her stomach hatch eating ice cream and drinking ice cream.
You know, now that I think about it, the mimic does kind of look like Maximus Ennard a bit.
To the back room of the pizzeria when no one was looking. At first, he was cautious. He would lure them with promises of cake and cookies. He told them that their dog had died. He would ask for help with...
I'm sorry, what? That your dog had died? What?
And that is a good incentive for a child to follow you into the back room.
More likely, No, actually, I know where you got this
homework.
from.
Susie was the first. You never truly forget your first.
I was the first. I have seen every...
I don't feel like this audio is very important to the rest of the video, and I feel like it could have been cut out. Most of the people watching the... Honestly, you could have put down like you did with all the other watermarks. You could, or not the watermarks, but you know what I mean? Like put down in the corner, Ultimate Custom Night, Withered Chica voice.
But where to hide the bodies? He couldn't sneak out. Someone would see him. He had to hide them in a place where they'd never be found and where they'd never leave the building. They had to be stuffed inside of the suits. No one maintained those things anyway except for him. And so Susie would go into Chica. Fritz, Jeremy, and Gabriel would come next, but it was easy. It was too easy. And with each little life he snuffed out, his lies got bigger. Their house was burning. They're just being kidnapped. Until the last one where all pretense was off. He let himself get violent. Too violent.
I'll just wait for him after school, throw a bag over his head, hit him with a shovel, and drag him into the back of my car.
The body of Cassidy was far more bloody and broken than any of the others. He'd let himself go too far. That one he shouldn't have killed. With no more active animatronics left, he shoved the body into...
You know, honestly, that's probably that actually holds some traction, honestly.
That is not a bad theory. I kind of like that.
Yeah. You like that? What the? That Cassie was brutally murdered,
Yes.
more so than the
They
other
were
one?
all brutally murdered. All murders are brutal.
Well, I mean...
Have you been living under a rock?
This is
Don't answer that.
Man, I was also going to make another comment. So, I know this point has been made many times, but the suits, as much as they move and how heated up they get, those bodies would begin to rot. And, like, imagine, like, they're performing a show and just, like, an eye comes out of the animatronics and rolls to the edge of the stage in front of, like, little Timmy. And you just have the one eye all bloodied and rotting, just looking up at little Timmy, who's at the very edge of the stage. Just, that would probably actually happen.
Or like a finger just...
Or there's the entire head. That just rolls. That just rolls to the edge of the stage. And like the eye falls out. And you know how kids get really close to the stage and like they put their hands on it because of how short they are? And you just have the head roll in front of them. And it sits there right in front of little Timmy. That honestly might have happened because the animatronic suits are moving and they get heated up and they cause the bodies to rot and decay. But that's just a theory.
Okay!
Theory. Thanks for watching.
One suit that remained backstage, the long-forgotten yellow Fredbear, now broken and discolored with age. Broken, like Cassidy was broken, like his son was broken. Newspapers reported on this disappearance, naming the whole thing the missing children's incident. Police would even charge William with the crimes after finding security footage of the golden mascot suit luring kids to the back, but they couldn't convict him. They had no bodies, and his face had been hidden behind the mascot suit the entire time. What they had was circumstantial at best, and so he walked away.
Why is he going
a
into
free
the girls'
man.
bathroom? Is he
Yeah,
a pedophile?
man. What do you think? I've always thought that, like, that Freddy is secretly a woman because he goes into the girls' bathroom. Think about it.
I'm just gonna start.
But Henry knew the truth. In these murders, he saw his daughter Charlie all over again. So he threw Afton out of the company and shuttered the doors to the old pizzeria. Henry would keep the franchise quiet for 2 years. This would not happen again. This could not happen again. How could he protect the kids? Finally, he developed a solution. He would implement
Are we ever going to get to Elizabeth?
No.
an even more extreme security system in the form of new animatronics. Toy animatronics, inspired by the toys that they had been selling years ago. But these guys, these were special. They were a new breed of robot with facial recognition abilities.
But most importantly, they're all tied into some kind of criminal database so they can detect a predator a mile away.
All the original animatronics, now withered with age, were moved to the new location. With a plan in place, it was time to try.
So, like, moving the suits, did they not find the dead bodies?
Like, look at how withered Foxy
Like,
is.
did they just see him and go, like, what? Just
Okay,
like,
the
whatever.
amount of plush suit on withered Foxy, there is not
It's
enough
like
to hide a
0
child
to
in
none.
there.
You'd have to chop it up a little bit. Honestly, Foxy should have been the one you shouldn't have killed because you have to chop him up into little pieces to even fit him anywhere.
Just like, today we're making child sushimi.
You just, like, you got the arm and it's like, cutting it real quick. That's
Just
awful.
like,
Oh, I have another way to get rid of the bodies. You take them, you cut them up, and you pretend to serve sushi. And then,
why?
And
Wait, no, you put it in the salad bar.
You put it in the salad bar.
You put it in the salad bar.
Exactly.
That would be horrible.
We need help.
Me too.
We need to go to Arkham Asylum.
Nah.
Is there a wait yes in this?
No.
Once more. The year was 1987, and the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was making headlines in local newspapers.
Help wanted VR, maybe?
Headlines that just so happened to catch the attention of William Afton. Freddy's was back, and without him, that was his idea, his character. Henry was, yet again, trying to cut him out of the picture. No, as long as these restaurants stayed open, William would always come back. Then he noticed the phone number to apply at the bottom of the article. $100 a week to apply call. Afton would go back, not as an owner or co-founder. He would go back in the one place that they would least suspect him, a lowly day shift security guard. And there it was, buried in the back of parts and services, mixed in with the old withered animatronics, was the golden rabbit. With the yellow security badge still on his chest, he used his crank to pull open the spring locks. It was time for Bonnie to give an encore performance.
Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Someone used it. Now none of them are acting right. From what I understand, the building is on lockdown. No one is allowed in or out, especially concerning any previous employees. When we get it all sorted out, we may move you to the day shift. A position just became available.
1987, 5 more kids. He didn't know what felt better, getting back into the suit after 2 long years of waiting, or knowing how devastating this would be to Henry the next morning. He didn't even try to hide his crime this time, just meant more blood on Henry's hands. He'd failed to protect the kids again. The restaurant had only been open for a few weeks, but William was sure that
Is this an actual game, or is this like something you made? Because I can't tell.
This is something he made.
Yeah.
this would get it to close. Good, if he couldn't have Freddy's, no one would. Whenever a new pizzeria opened, he would be there. But as he sat in his bunker, something else started to linger in William's mind. He had seen something strange. The old withered animatronics, they had been wandering around the building, spurred on by the puppet. It was almost like those old robots were trying to save the kids. Save them? They couldn't, obviously, but still, how were they moving? It was almost like they had been given life somehow. Did he have something to do with that? The following day, the news would report a security guard getting bitten by one of the animatronics during the day shift. Was that bite meant for him? William's curiosity was stronger now than his bloodlust. He had to learn more, but how? There was no way he'd ever be able to get inside another Freddy's pizzeria. Heck, there was practically no way a Freddy's would ever open again. He needed to create something new, something brand new. He needed to create...
Finally! Also, he said that he created After Robotics, and then we just stopped there, and we started talking about the killings, but MatPat did mention that he created his own company, and I don't remember if he ever mentioned why.
His own pizzeria.
Due to the massive success and
His Pizza World. This would be the place where he could continue his work. No longer just murdering, experimenting. He needed more kids, and he needed them alive. And knowing that he couldn't show his face on the restaurant floor, he needed a way of remotely capturing his victims and preserving them for his work. With that goal in mind, he designed a new breed of animatronic. Their endoskeletons fluid and flexible. He equipped them with sound lures that could mimic voices. They could isolate children. They could incapacitate and contain them with zero direct input from him. It was brilliant. He was brilliant. Far beyond the simple bars and wires of Henry's designs. And the characters he chose for this were uniquely his. His new roster wasn't going to be tainted by Henry's disgusting barnyard bird. Instead, it was back to his characters, his creations. Freddy, Bonnie, Foxy, as well as 2 special ones. The first, Ballora, was an homage to the woman who left him. Now she would never leave him again. The second, the titular baby, was designed with his baby in mind. Elizabeth, his youngest child. She would always be Daddy's little girl, the one that listened to him, the one that obeyed until the day that she didn't.
Daddy, why won't you let me?
Do I even want to know?
Gorgeous Magnolia, the Nua du Parfum.
Oh, it's anime shit.
Holy shit, what's that?
Oh, Chips Ahoy!
Opened, she disobeyed. She didn't listen. Left alone with baby, she got too close. The animatronic ripped in half and swallowed her whole. A scared and confused child fading into eternal darkness. By the time Afton found her, it was too late. She was gone. He immediately canceled the launch of circus babies under the guise of a gas leak. But wait, as he sat there at the foot of the stage, he noticed that something was different. The eye color of the robot had changed. Baby had been built with blue eyes, but now they were emerald green, the same color as Elizabeth's. Was she in there? Could this all be connected to the free-moving animatronics that he had seen at Freddy's? He had to know more. His mourning turned to excitement. He had to return to where it all started. 1993. Pathetic. This place was pathetic. Henry had clearly tried to reopen one final time with those old original animatronics from so long ago, but William's damage to the...
So are the children still in there, you know?
So how would they completely revamp the robots without seeing the bodies?
Honestly, at that point, they're just mush. All they found was a pile of goo and a weird smell.
Oh, Jack in the Crack, what a horrible smell I have found.
Yeah, basically that. You just like reach in, it's like, oh, it's kind of juicy in here. They get like a...
Maybe we should put it in a bottle.
What? Nah, they just like spritzed it with air freshener. They didn't even bother getting the goo out. They just like spritzed it with some air freshener. And
so that's what fast goo is.
Oh my god, no. I can't even remember what fast goo is because
It's the bodies. It's the bodies.
I've read the books, but the fast goo was weird. No, I like this better.
Brand had been permanent. These things stank of death. They hadn't been washed in decades.
Literally.
But even if they had, nothing could wash away the stink of murder that haunted these halls.
I told you! A pile of goo and a strange smell.
One night, then another, then another. William repeatedly snuck into the old, broken restaurant to lure the living animatronics to him, one by one dismantling them.
Honestly, I kind of like that better than that Michael was at Fnaf 2, Fnaf 1, and...
That makes more sense if I'm...
And honestly, it makes okay sense.
Robbing them of their endoskeletons. The metal had to be the secret. It had to contain the remnants of life itself. But he had to know for sure. Leaping out of a room that was invisible to the animatronics programming, he dragged the oversized robotic skeletons back to his underground workshop. Back to where Circus Baby watched on with glowing, curious eyes.
Bro, you can't even see her. Oh, no, wait.
Eyes that somehow felt alive. Not knowing what else to do, William melted the robotic parts down. 5 animatronic endoskeletons reduced down to one silvery puddle of goo. Could he transfer this living metal to his own creations? He had to try.
Bro, he's gonna inject that into himself. Tetanus, here I come!
It's like, this can either lead to accident, to excellence, or extreme injury.
There's only one way to find out!
But there's only one way to find out which one it is.
That's how you...
extreme injury.
Bro, that's how you speed run tetanus.
Picked up a syringe and filled it with the molten metal.
You could not fit it. You could not take... I don't think you could take molten metal and put it inside a syringe.
Without the syringe melting.
The heat would cause the glass to crack, I believe.
Must be like wizard magic.
Bro,
at this point,
this whole game is wizard magic. Don't question it. I said don't question it.
Injected the goo into Funtime Freddy's twisted, wiry endoskeleton.
That's not Funtime Freddy's twisted, wiry endoskeleton. That's Yendo, you idiot. You
dumbass.
Bro, you are colorblind.
And suddenly the coils came to life. Like snakes writhing in a pile, what had once been cold, lifeless metal moved and jolted on its own. He'd done it! He had unlocked the secret to life itself. Except something was clearly wrong. The movements were erratic. They were violent, angry. Baby didn't act this way. She had been calm, collected. This was clearly something else, something mindless and frantic. Perhaps by mixing the souls and then portioning them out, he had created incomplete beasts. He would need to keep testing to truly understand it. He needed more of this remnant. As he searched the old pizzeria one more time for any remaining scraps of metal, the ghosts attacked. His past victim...
Hi.
The ghosts can't honestly attack.
They're ghosts.
William ended his own self.
He literally killed himself now.
Exactly. Yeah, the ghosts will just walk through you, honestly.
Come to collect their due, all led by Cassidy. The 5 lined up and blocked the door, and Afton's mind reeled. The scientific implications of this were incredible. Ghosts, real ghosts that he could see all standing against him. But what could they do? What couldn't they do? He panicked as Cassidy approached. How do you stop something that's already dead? Maybe with the thing that resulted in their death in the first place. He would get into his suit like old times. He would regain his power over them just like the day that they died. He was the genius. He was the one in the suit. He was the one in charge. The spring lock snapped into place. Maybe it was his frantic movements. Maybe it was the leaky abandoned restaurant. Maybe it was just fate coming to collect its due. He didn't know. The only thing he did know was that his brain was suddenly filled with searing white-hot pain as hundreds of metallic pins and gears stabbed into his body from all sides. All he could do was collapse, blood slowly oozing out of the suit and pooling onto the floor around him. It couldn't end like this. It wouldn't end like this. His work was unfinished. Unable to move, his only option was to survive, to live, to keep living. It took days lying in his own blood, but eventually someone found him, a security guard making a normal report. When he saw the animatronics torn apart in the middle of the party room floor, it caused him to file an immediate report of a break-in. An owner would have to come in and claim the damage, and who else would it be other than Henry? Hope jumped in Afton's heart. Henry would see him. They were partners after all. He would be the one to help save him, to get him out of this suit, to relieve him from this tremendous pain. Henry entered the secret room. His eyes fell on Afton sitting there in the pool of red, and Henry, saying nothing, turned and walked away.
This is just to inform all employees that due to budget restrictions, the previously mentioned safe rooms are being sealed at most locations, including this one. Nothing is being taken out beforehand, so if you left anything inside, then it's your own fault. Management also requests that this room not be mentioned to family, friends, or insurance representatives.
And so there Afton would sit, hanging on for 30 years, trapped behind the walls with an iron will that refused to die. End of this part.
So explain to me why there's still 3 more minutes.
Yeah, bro. He's
Almost 4 more minutes.
MatPat's gonna explain to us. Honestly, we didn't see the last.
I say this part because it's not officially the end of the time again by the games. That said, there are 2 things that I absolutely have to address. The first and biggest is the placement of sister location, or more specifically, Elizabeth's death. To me, evidence in game seems to suggest that it was meant to come before the crying child's death in 1983.
That's what I'm
biggest
saying.
clue to this is that the crying child saw something. Remember what you saw is the phrase that's repeated over and over again by psychic friend Fredbear, aka William Afton speaking through a walkie-talkie in the Fredbear plushie's stomach. But what did he see? Well, I think we can tell based on how the nightmare animatronics are visualized. They have mouths in their stomachs, just like Baby ripping in half at the waist to swallow a kid. There's also the empty girl's room, one presumably left behind by it too close because the last time one of its books like the character encyclopedia outright suggests that we play as the crying child. The death of Elizabeth also gives William Afton that at least one of his children had to have died prior to Charlie's death, based on the mound of dirt that we see in Midnight Motorist. It also allows circus babies to open and close earlier in the timeline, which is how you wind up with Funtime Foxy appearing as Mangle in the Fnaf.
I'm not entirely sure that Funtime Foxy is Mangle. I think Funtime Foxy is... I'm sorry, I think that Mangle is based off Funtime Foxy or other way around, but I don't think that they are the same character.
Like, the endoskeletons aren't
like
the
same.
Like
the endoskeletons,
2 location. Basically, Elizabeth dying first has everything it needs to fit, except for the most important thing, the murder weapon. Why would Afton be building an animatronic with a giant claw in its stomach so early in the timeline? At this point, he just has no motive. It just doesn't make sense prior to 1983. At this point in the story, he hasn't killed anyone, and we know for a fact that the missing children's incident is 1985. So Elizabeth...
Do we know that it's 1985? Let me see.
Motive. It just doesn't make sense prior to 1983. At this point in the story, he hasn't killed anyone, and we know for a fact...
Okay, do we know for a fact? Let me read this. It does not give a date.
He's suggesting that the Silver Ice and Fazbear Frights one.
Oh yeah, that's where we got it from. Yeah.
That the missing children's incident is 1985. So Elizabeth's death coming before any of those events just doesn't work. Hence why I placed it where I did in the narrative timeline.
Okay, honestly, this is all pretty fair. I mean, as much as they retconned it, I can accept
Afton's death here is also a bit tricky. We know that he returned to the Fnaf 1 location to break down the original animatronics in order to harvest their remnant.
It's purple guy!
We know that he melts down 5 things to become 1 thing. Candy Cadet makes that very clear. So the 5 things are the 5 endoskeletons from the various animatronics. That would be totally fine if it weren't for one huge problem. On his 5th visit to the pizzeria, Afton gets spring-locked. So either the 5 becoming 1 starts in 1993, but then finishes 30 years later when he re-emerges from the wall to add the last endoskeleton to his pile, or he's had himself some reason to return to the original location after harvesting all the stuff that he can. It's not ideal, but it's the one angle that makes the most sense. And with that...
Okay, so... here's the thing with the endos. What I always assumed was that he had already destroyed Cassidy's endo in another room, and then Cassidy, and then as he was finishing up, combine. You know what? That is very hard to explain. I'm not even gonna touch that. So yeah, that's the end of the video.
This next chapter comes to a close, thereby anyway, until then, my
Bye. Okay, so yeah, I think that's it. You got anything to say?
Candy the Cadet is morbid as
Bro, I kinda... Honestly, yeah, that's true.
I know that hasn't happened yet, but like Candy Cadet is really morbid for no reason.
Yeah. I like...
The fact that he says it with a robotic voice is
Bro,
weird.
it's the AI voice that everyone uses to make memes.
Yeah.
So anyway, okay, anyway, that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching. You subscribe or don't.
I'm gonna jump off of a building.